Hi everybody, Rachelle Jones, Lunch and Live at 11:45, Friday, April 24th, 2020. Um, okay, well, how is everyone? I have no idea what week we're on with this quarantine. No idea. Maybe you do. Hey Nicole, thanks for joining. By the way, in my bio for Instagram, if you're watching over there, my bio has the Zoom link, which should be audio only. Last time I had a little mishap, but I think I fixed it. So it should be audio only, no visual, so that you're protected over there. Sometimes it's just easier to talk than it is to type if you have a question or a response. So head over to my bio and Instagram and click in for the Zoom audio. All right, so my first question is, where is everyone? How's everyone doing? Um, where are you all? I found myself this week feeling exhausted, and I couldn't really figure out why. Not exhausted like physically so much, but exhausted emotionally, and I couldn't figure out what is that? Where is that coming from? The days are pretty much the same as they usually are. I have a lot of intensity and a lot of energy coming at me, so that's not necessarily new. But I couldn't. I just felt run down. I just felt tired and emotional and heavy and like I need a break. I need a break. And I think what I discovered about myself is that there isn't a break. There's not an ability to really take a break. The routine is the same every day, and I kind of feel as though I'll have some new discoveries about this coming up. But the monotony of the day, right? Is anyone else experiencing that? That there's not really a change or an adjustment, or the routine is the same. There's not really a break type of thing. And I could be better at creating them, but I just kind of hadn't. So I was curious for you how that was for you. I have kids in the area because I'm downstairs today, so let me just take a peek. So, okay, they'll figure it out. All right. So, in this week, what I realized, hi Cheryl, thank you for joining. Um, okay, so what I realized is there's not anything particularly like bad or horrible, it's just a buildup. And maybe you're experiencing something similar too. Um, I realized this morning we had a nice little emergency situation yesterday, literally an emergency room visit last night. Everyone got home around 1 this morning. Maybe we were all in bed, finally showered and whatever the best by 2. But there's a lot of energy in this whole week. It has been an interesting week, out of the norm week. In some ways, at least it felt that way. But I guess emergency room visits are out of the norm. Anyway, when everyone gets home, or what was I trying to say? Oh, look at me. My brain's tired. I'm tired. Anyway, I noticed early in the week I just needed to like pause and um, take a breath and not be so structured, because I do need some sort of structure, whatever that looks like for you is okay. It's good. It's necessary. When everything's different, we need to create a new structure, and so that was important. We talked about that many weeks ago about creating little steps of structure. But I noticed this week I needed to set that down. Like I said before on a different video, my alarm went off at the normal time it did, but I was like, nope, not having it today. I just don't want to play. And so I slept for another hour, and then I got up and started my regular routine. But then I was like, nope, that doesn't feel right either. And so I put out a video the other day about just little quits. When can you quit? And give yourself permission to acknowledge that your soul needs something different in that moment. Um, so it was a lot of little tweaks like that this week of just, Rachelle, recognize you're tired, take sips, a lot of out of the norm experiences too, I guess, now that I think about it. Anyhow, because this ER visit, I had to go to the store today to pick up antibiotics. My son, he cut his hand on dirty metal, deep flesh. And so he had to go into the ER to get it numbed and cleaned a little better than I was able to do here, and also stitches, 8 of them, the little V-shaped cut right on his, I guess, is that your lifeline there? I don't know. Anyway, he had to get some stitches and x-rays, and now we have to consult a plastic surgeon, because of the bend to make sure it's going to heal okay, and see what else needs to be done. Anyway, I'm out my way to get antibiotics. And then I ended up getting some milk and some, perishables. Anyhow, as I drive by, sometimes I don't know if this happens in your town, but here in California, in Southern California, outside of the Home Depot, or there are just little stations where people will stand waiting, like day workers, day laborers will stand waiting to be picked up for work, maybe help painting, maybe help moving, maybe help building things. Just, it doesn't matter, just day laborers. And when I drove by today and I saw some of these people standing there, I just burst into tears in my car, which is yet another sign that, Rachelle, you've got some energy going on. You need to calm down. You need to pause. So I do. I take from 9 p.m. Friday to 9 p.m. Saturday. I don't turn on any electronics. Unless it's like a movie with my family. No phone, no connection, period, end of story, done. I am not open for business from 9 p.m. Friday to 9 p.m. Saturday for any reason, unless there's like a family emergency. And that's just a little way I create a safety space for myself. So are you guys finding that for yourself? Are you finding that you need to create safety spaces? No news. Stop the stimulation. Stop the internet. Stop the social media. I don't touch social media on those days. I physically turn my phone off. I don't even turn my computer on so that I can totally just set everything down. And this week, because I'm a little more tender, I may need to do 2 of those. And then what usually happens is I find the clarity of where's the sore, the emotional sore, the emotional wound, the piece of grief that I missed. So I can do a piece of grief work. But that's my kind of where I'm an ambivert. That's my little introverted side of where I have to get as still as possible so I can find where the wound is. Kind of like my son last night. I need to elevate. I need to elevate. Yes, you do, but I need to see where this wound is. I need to take a look at it. I need to see what we're dealing with. But I need to elevate. And I need to elevate. You need to be still so I could look at this. So sometimes we have to do that. Sometimes we have to get still with a physical wound, a physical injury. It was a mess, like scrubbing blood out of the garage. A mess. It's a mess. But sometimes like physically in that moment, I needed him to stop for a minute so I could see where the wound is, what we're dealing with, what's going on, and decide on the required treatment. Our emotions are the same. And what are you finding? Are you listening to yourself? Are you creating these spaces for yourself? So we think about grief. Grief, never a dull moment. Yeah, I know, right? I need to create a time, but I have severe FOMO. That's something you're going to have to work with. You're going to have to decide, do you want to hang on to your FOMO and decide that you know everything? Does it really help you to know everything? And what is your fear of, why are we afraid to miss out? What are you actually missing out? Are you really living when you're watching it on a screen anyway? So these are some things you're going to have to decide. You're going to have to make choices. You're going to have to decide, is this really helping me, or would it be better for me to take a pause? Because remember, you are making choices. These are your choices: to keep the stimulation and to keep the effects that extra stimulation brings you, or are you going to take a choice and make something different? We all have to make a choice. And remember that not making a choice is still making a choice. So keep that in mind. Okay. So what I was realizing is that because there's so much extra stimulation, remember, grief is the feelings that bubble up when something changes on us. Grief is the feelings that bubble up when something changes, or grief is the feelings that bubble up when we wish a moment or something would be different. The feelings that bubble up when we wish something would be a little bit better, an interaction, a relationship, a money exchange, whatever it is, a friendship, a romantic relationship, a working relationship, a conversation, a phone call, it doesn't matter. Our weight, our health, when we wish there was something different or better or more, then we experience feelings, and those feelings are called grief, okay? Sometimes the world will call it stress. know that that means grief. And it's stemming because there's something in this moment that you wish would be different or better. So we're all experiencing a massive change, okay? Even if it's not us directly, seeing these day laborers on the side of the road and thinking to the immediate thought was, oh no, how are they making money? And how are they feeding their family? It's so overwhelming to me. And I can't help but think that way. And I'm sure I'm not alone. Is anyone else doing that and looking out to the world or even your own situation, but also others? And it's the compounding changes that we're all experiencing and what it could possibly be feeling like for another person. It's empathy, and it can be exhausting. It can be really heavy. So we have to practice some self-care and some um, self-awareness and some self-compassion. And that means, inserting some pauses, inserting some breaks, and also taking some really effective action. So my breaks are not just breaks. They're a time for me to just be still because I know through my patterns that something is going to bubble up that I can actually work with. So anyway, the one thing I noticed is all these changes and all this grief that we have going on. Plus, when we're still, we can't ignore all the old grief situations that really weren't healed properly. They're all coming up at you, aren't they? They do to me too. If I haven't dealt with them, they start coming up because I'm not busy to ignore them. That's what busyness does. Hi, Jackie. It helps us just ignore all the past things. But now we're not busy the way that we were before. And that's where FOMO can come in of it's really just what we call a STIRB, a short-term energy relieving behavior of um, you know, numbing and suppressing feelings and emotions because we can sort of numb out there. But it also could be, a fear of not being included because of a loss of not being included, a loss of acceptance, a loss of love, a loss of trust, a loss of safety. So those could be really big things. And that's why sometimes FOMO can bubble up too. Usually we can find a root in your grief history that is going to be feeding that FOMO. So it's important to have these pauses. So sometimes we can be more aware of ourselves, okay? So anyway, I realized that there's not anything particularly out of the norm. I have a teenage child. I have children here, and I work in the emotional recovery business, and I work in another situation where I help people, and that's not new and different. What's different for me is that um, it's not easy to find a way to make a different choice, right? We have to figure out how to do that. There's not the natural break of going to my office. There's not the natural break of driving to and from the office. There's not the natural break of I've got to run to the store. There's not the natural. It's a very different, like, do I really want to do it? Well, I could probably push that off, and all this new type of feelings and thought processes that are going with it. Um, and so there aren't those little sips of breaks every day, okay? And so because of that, I'm not getting them, but neither is my child number one, neither is child number two. So there's just a lot of energy, emotion floating around the house, bouncing off one another when it maybe would have bounced off a friend. It maybe would have been worked out through a sport. It maybe would have been, simmered and settled a little bit, but now that's not happening other than they're skateboarding outside a little bit and tearing open their hand, or, bike riding or taking a walk, but it's constant stimulation. And is anybody else noticing that it's this constant stimulation and there's not a break? I'm hearing a lot of stories and I'm seeing a lot of things, the few little moments I am online. Relationships, marriages, romantic relationships are really suffering in a lot of homes right now. Friendships are suffering. Roommates type relationships are suffering. Parent-child relationships are suffering. Sibling relationships are suffering. Because we all have this energy. We're all looking to someone else to help us, to hear us, to be present for us. And if we don't have that, it can be really exhausting. And even if we do have that, it can still be really exhausting. So what are you guys seeing or noticing that can be really exhausting? I realized just how much energy it takes to keep children alive. It's a grieving experience, honestly. I have I know how to keep myself safe. I know what I feel safe with. But this person over here has their own idea with what they think is safe, and it may not line up. I can have a boundary of what I think is safe, but if they want to push that a little bit, I have to then decide, can I allow that? How far will I allow that to go? What's that going to feel like if it does hurt emotionally, physically? What's that going to be? Can I just let that happen right now for the greater good of they have to experience some of the life on their own? There's all this work going on. Are you guys able to do that? Are we recognizing that there's a lot of energy, even if we're kind to each other, there's still energy floating around and we're all feeling that, picking up on that? Um, Anybody else feeling the effects of no break? Anybody feeling the effects of it's challenging to be in relationship when we're just always right here? What kind of skills and tools could be useful to you in your relationships? Grief recovery method is super helpful. I did what we would call a completion yesterday. I have 4 sitting in the works that are written and completed, just need to be shared with a safe listener. But I'm going to have more. And I'm curious, what are you doing? Some things that I would like to leave you with. Hey, Jess. What do we have up here? I feel angry that we are the only state that has opened up, but my heart also breaks for those that couldn't work. Sweet and sour tied together. Yeah, that's such a great point. That so often society tells us you just got to find the good, you got to focus on the positive, you got to stay joyful, you got to find gratitude. And that's such a damaging message because it totally cuts out this other half of our awareness and it creates a conflict. Grief defined is the feelings, the conflicting feelings that bubble up because of moments you wish would be different or better or more. It's the conflicting feelings that bubble up because of what we wish would be, are the hopes and dreams and expectations that aren't going to be met or weren't met. Okay. So when people tell us to only focus on the good, the joy, the positive, find gratitude or have an attitude of gratitude, be kind, all of that is true and good, but it's only half of the truth. And it's only half of real life because, like Cheryl said here, life is very much sweet and sour, and we have to acknowledge both. But nobody taught us how to bring up the sour in a way that's helpful, useful, correct. So what we do is we teach you that. What I'd like to leave you with today is just to remember that every time somebody speaks, assume that every time, this is the one time where it's safe to make an ass out of you and me, okay? To assume, if you've ever heard that, this is the one time it's safe. Assume that every time someone speaks, they're just really wanting you to hear how it feels. Every time someone speaks, they're wanting you to hear how it feels. Assume that. Go there. So if they speak something and they just want you to know how it feels or hear how it feels, you go back with, did you feel lost or did you feel embarrassed? Because if you're just assuming that they're trying to tell me how they felt, you don't know, you're going to have to go back with a question. And they're going to say, no, it really felt like this, or oh, it really felt like that. Always do that first. Then, if they wanted you to hear the facts, no, I said 3/8 to the left, or whatever it's going to be. Okay, I'm completely just shooting from the hip there. But then you'll know, oh, they just need me to hear the facts right now. Most of the time, you will be safe to be a heart with ears. Listen with your heart, which means you respond with, oh, ooh, did you feel embarrassed? Did you feel left out? So if you go forward with an emotional question mark, they'll come back and say, well, I guess, yeah, I did feel kind of alone. You know, you heard them and you gave them such a gift. So this is something to do in your communications as we are digital, in person. I don't care where you are, big, small, young, old. This is how to listen. And then what I want you to get used to doing on your own self is recognizing that every time you speak, there's probably an emotion you're trying to express. So start to clue into yourself of what are the emotions? What are you feeling? Um, it's usually, your recovery is not hiding in the facts and the details. That's all brain intellectual stuff. Your recovery, your change of feeling is hiding in your heart and your emotions. So trust your intuition when it says, tell somebody about that, tell somebody about that, do it. Um, so what I want to leave you with is hear people with your heart. Just assume they need you to hear how it feels. No matter what they say, assume they're trying to explain to you how they felt. And then secondly, we just got to work on being honest, being emotionally honest, not factually. There's something I put on Twitter today. What was my thought at that point? What was it? I don't remember. But it was, the true bravery, or not necessarily true bravery, but sometimes bravery means telling the truth about yourself. And when I say the truth, I mean your emotional truth. Oh, I felt run down and just overwhelmed this week. Instead of, yeah, I'm fine, everything's good. Fine, remember, it means feelings inside, not expressed. So if you say fine, that's what I hear every time. And it says, really? Because your voice sounds like there might be a little bit more than that going on. Have the courage, be emotionally honest too. If you hear someone say they're fine and they don't sound fine, you get honest with yourself and acknowledge that you noticed they're not fine. Go a little deeper. Really? Okay. I feel like I'm hearing something in your tone. Something's bothering you. What is it? Be bold, be brave, be courageous to be vulnerable. Put yourself out there, whether it's about you or about them. We have to notice each other. We have to get honest with our emotions. We have to acknowledge that, gee whiz, this is quite challenging and I'm feeling overwhelmed. We have to acknowledge that if we're overwhelmed, we have to take charge of that thought and we have to do something with it. We have to make an action. Maybe you're not ready for a grief recovery method class right now. That's fine. That's up to you. But you can make other changes, which, like I said, can you quit something? Can you say, you know what? I need to set my very hard, tight routine down a little bit today because I'm overwhelmed. It's not press through it, steamroll through it, suppress emotion, bury emotion. If you need to cry, you need to cry. And if someone's crying in your midst, please tell them when they're done crying that you love them and to thank them for being emotional with you. Offer a hug when they're all done crying. Thanks for sharing. Are you accepting hugs? And if you're not with anyone, call a friend. Hey, I'm just feeling tender. I just wanted someone to know. It does take a little bit of you. Um, you have to be a little bit involved. It's lunch and live, guys. I have to have some of these nuts. I haven't had the opportunity to eat yet. Recognize that it is challenging. We love our children so much. Recognize that they're not doing anything wrong when they start acting up. Kids, by nature, are supposed to push boundaries and limits and figure out what life will tolerate. There's nothing wrong with your kids when they're pushing outside of the limits. So find yourself, how do you react when they do a normal thing? How do you act? How do you respond when they misbehave? How do you respond when they hurt themselves? Is it really you're over responding? Or you have a very intense response because you were afraid? Were you afraid of what was going to happen to them? Are you afraid that, holy cow, this line of behavior that they're on, I'm afraid of what the outcome's going to be long term or whatever. I'm afraid for how I'll be inconvenienced. So let's just be honest. Heading to emergency rooms or whatever, that's not exactly convenient. So acknowledge what's your response like in that, and these moments that can end up in a scary way. And is it really just about a fear that you have? There's so much. I'm kind of all over the place today because, to be honest, I'm exhausted. Hey Cheryl, big hug. Yeah. Lisa, hugs to you. Oh yeah, Lisa. Jackie, oh, that's so good. Let's see. Hi, thank you for joining. Thanks everyone for being here today. Oh, yay. Thank you so much for being here. So, let's see. All right. I think for today, that's what I just want to leave you with to focus on is being aware of yourself, where your overwhelms are, where your abundance of emotional energy or wounds are. What can you capture what can you quit for right now, what can you put down for right now, what can you adjust or tweak. Don't just be hard-nosed and say, no, this is the only way it needs to be. What can you tweak and adjust? This is why it's a grieving experience in a lot of ways too, is because all the patterns are gone. Now we're having to work and figure out new patterns and new just new routines. And guys, I want you to hear that you have every right to feel this. It's exhausting sometimes. What we could just sort of numb out and go through the motions with before, we can't anymore. We have to figure out total new patterns and ways of doing things. So please be aware of that. If it's a buildup for you, let's get help. This method works. I work online all day, every day. I lied. My main work days are Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. So let's just be honest about that. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. All the information's on my website, griefrecoverywithrachelle.com. After this live right now, I switched out my bio link, and you can just enroll right there and get the process started there. Or go to my website, griefrecoverywithrachelle.com. If you want to work with someone different, go to griefrecoverymethod.com. Learn to click that evidence-based tab. Learn how the grief recovery method is the only method in existence on planet Earth with over 40 years worth of practice and experience of truly completing, helping you with the heavy, painful emotions that keep churning up or bubbling up at you because of moments you wish would have been different, better, or more, or hopes, dreams, and expectations that haven't been met, aren't going to be met from the past through the future. Grief doesn't go anywhere, guys. Did you know that? Did you know that you just store it and hang on to it until you properly deal with it? Did you know that? So grief is like a backpacker. We're like this internal storage system of grief energy. And until we properly get in there and heal it, it just hangs out and bubbles up in different ways. So, in fifth grade, if I was, let's say at 6, I'm bullied in kindergarten or first grade, or the friends won't let me be a part of their group, or they're just not being kind to me. Did you know that the roots of that are going to travel throughout your life in some way? Who knows how it will show up? But it'll travel throughout your life. So when you're 25 looking for a relationship, you fight a little bit too hard to be seen or noticed or acknowledged, or you push a little bit too hard to be seen and heard and acknowledged. So these roots from back in our childhood are absolutely affecting. Somebody, left you or embarrassed you. Guess what? That shows up in your adult life with overreactions, with, overly trying to prove yourself, or it shows up in your present day. So what I help you do is find these roots and connect how they're hurting you or harming you or just not serving you well today, so that you can really change the quality of your life today. We don't always realize that it's stemming back from some old stuff. So I help you find that. You don't do it alone. And this is all part of a grief recovery method class. It's really great. Let's see, what does it say? Because I'm flying so much, this is so helpful. Hear people with my heart, acknowledge every single person I encounter. Yes, Jackie, that is such a beautiful, beautiful awareness. Because you have such a heart for people. But I also want you to hear to have a heart for yourself. Guys, we can love people all day long, but if we don't learn how to love ourselves, we burn out, we fizzle out, and then who's around to love those people who would have normally been loved by you in some way? Loved, seen, heard in their heart, emotionally acknowledged, right? If you let yourself wear down too far, you're not available to hear people in the future. So it's most important that you pause and focus on yourself, because then you have nothing to give forward, or not as much, not as good a quality maybe. And so it's be a heart for people. Recognize when you need to say, no, you know what? I have to turn on my phone. Are you kidding? I have needs coming at me all day, every single day. I forcefully turn off my phone entirely, powered down, never even touch the computer to turn it on, from Friday night until Saturday night for me. And that is simply to protect myself, because if I don't pay attention to myself, I don't have anything to give you. You understand how that works? So I'm going to say this, but it's controversial, right? So grief recovery is not about religion in any way, shape, or form, but a really huge scripture that a lot of, let's say, Christianity is built on is love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. The next sentence is, and love your neighbor, love other people the way you love yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. So I take that to heart, that we can't love our neighbor differently than we're loving ourselves. So if you aren't spending time and energy, hi, thanks for joining. If we aren't spending time and energy to love ourselves, to know ourselves, to heal ourselves, to recover ourselves, to give ourselves sips of time and space and peace, we absolutely can't truly, deeply, long lasting give that to other people. So I want you to hear me. I will never back down on, if you don't start with you, we got nothing. We got nothing. Okay? It's a really big, important thing. Internal storage. Yeah, great analogy. Oh, awesome. I see so many people helping each other. Good, good, good. And I bet you do. And with all your traveling, you're seeing so many different cultures and people. So I can't even imagine what you're seeing out there. And I'm so glad. Oh my gosh, what does that do for your heart when you see people helping people? Isn't it so beautiful? Oh, my sakes, I just love it so much. And what helps me is when I see people helping people and they actually know how to help people. So what I mean is, you don't have to be trained, but once you go through a grief recovery method class, you are trained um, for yourself how to listen and hear and be present and go forward and draw people and be emotionally honest and sort of go first to create safety with people. You're learning that because we're doing it together, and that means then yes, you have the ability to do that for other people. So it starts to, the ripple effects, the pay it forward really starts to happen simply because you chose to help yourself. Isn't that interesting? I love that about it. Internal storage, great thought. I hope lots of lights are going on and people will inquire about helping themselves. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. All right, everybody. We are all in this together. Yeah. So Wes is here. Thank you for joining, by the way. And if you ever want to join these luncheon lives, it's easier for you to speak your thoughts. There's always a link in my Instagram bio that you can join over here on Zoom. It's verbal only. It's audio only. There's no video. I'm the only one on the video, so that you're protected in that way. But sometimes it's just easier to speak thoughts than type. You know, if I had to type all of this stuff or text it, I wouldn't do it. So just that might be a little bit easier. If you have questions, thoughts, wonders, it's good to come over here. We're all in this together. Yeah, Wes. So I'm going to end on that. We are all in this together. Not a one of us is not connected in some way to another human. Even if you live completely alone, when you flush the toilet, if that stops happening, we need to call a plumber. When you have a refrigerator, if that goes out, we need to go to the store. At some point, we always have to find another human to be in this world with, right? So I just want you to, if you only order everything online and you could fix everything by yourself, you still have to order something online, and there are humans responsible for packaging that up and sending it to you. We can't get out of this life without touching other humans in some way. So the best thing we could do is really help look into ourselves, look inward, to find where we need our pauses. Oops, sorry guys, the battery's going low there. But find where we need our pauses, take those pauses, and let's take some really true, correct, scientifically based, evidence-based healing practices and actions with ourselves. Because guess what, too? What we don't heal and do and learn and make sure what we know and do is totally correct and helpful, guess what we do? We pass that unhelpful practice into the world, thinking we're being helpful. Guess what? Our children, we pass our stuff, just assuming that we know the right stuff, we pass that into our kids. And guess what? We start to see that in middle school, high school, adult years. That's why suicide rates and things are so high in these younger generations, is because the adults assumed they knew everything. Well, I trust a method that's proven to be effective by science a whole lot more than just, well, I don't know, that's the way I grew up. It's not really safe. So it's kind of a big gamble. I see so many billboards and signs saying exactly that, Wes, around the country. It's uplifting. Oh, good, good, good. Well, I'm glad you're seeing that. And I'm glad you're having those moments to be uplifted, Jackie. We can't just stay down low, can we? We have to somehow find a sip that helps us get back up, helps us have the energy, the courage, the boldness to take action in some way. What's that going to be for you? Is that going to say, listen, no matter what, I'm setting down my FOMO from, this time to this time. Start with an hour, start with 2 hours. Grow if you need to. Take baby steps. It doesn't need to be a 24-hour period. It doesn't need to be a 2-day, 1-week period. Start with a baby step. If that's all you can manage, start there. If it's, I need to take a little pause from my routine, or maybe it's I need to create some kind of routine. Choose one thing to start with, or choose one thing to set down. You have to decide where you are and take a choice and an action with that. Make a choice and take an action. Because remember, no choice, no action is still a choice. No action is still a choice, okay? So let's find where our patterns are that are not helpful. Let's find what we're doing to try to just numb out, and maybe it'll go away. We can't just pull the blanket over our head and hope that our feelings and emotions will go away. They don't. It doesn't work that way. Maybe they'll soften and suppress a little bit, and you can like focus on other things. They will come back up when they get the opportunity. It's kind of like, I don't know, a bubble underwater. It could be held down, but as soon as it gets the opportunity, a little leakage in something, it rises, right? That's just how we are as humans. Nobody is impervious to this. Some just might be far more practiced at keeping all the bubbles down. But your soul, your intuition is strong and powerful. It'll let them rise when it's time. Trust your intuition. Know that if it's something from 10, 15, 20 years ago, there's nothing wrong with you. There's everything right with you, with your soul, with your body, with your intuition, with your emotions for bringing that stuff up. It's trying to get healing. And if you ignore it for long enough, you have these really physical consequences: heartburn, acid reflux, headaches, migraines, muscle tension, inflammation, cancer, heart disease, stroke. These are, diabetes. All the body functions are connected and tied to grief that you haven't dealt with. So let's work on this energy. Let's pay attention. Let's be aware of ourselves, because we can't make a change in the world unless we do. So I love you guys. Please, when you watch this on YouTube, it'll be posted on Wednesday. If you're in my mailing list, you get it on Monday. But please like, subscribe, and share. So the more likes, subscribes, and shares we get, it helps spread the news a little bit quicker so people can find path to the help that they really need. This grief recovery method, I mean, honestly, should have been taught to each one of us in kindergarten, preschool, all the school years. It just wasn't. Instead, we learned a lot of myths and pieces of information that are not true, correct, and helpful, simply because they're just passed down. So we want to change the cycle of our life. We want to change the cycle of the lives of those around us. And that's how we're going to do it. Okay, I need each one of you in this. I can't do it by myself. So for today, this is Friday Luncheon Live at 11:45. I love you guys. I'm so thankful that you spend your time here with me. I am going to have a very, hopefully, gentle weekend with myself and sort of restore some of my emotional energy and do some of those actions I know that are going to help me. And I hope you'll find something that helps you to at least be aware and maybe take some action in your life to create a change and a healthier you. Okay? I love you. Don't be afraid to send me notes. DM me on Instagram if you need to, and all the social medias. Find me at griefrecoverywithrachelle.com. I'd love to hear from you guys. Enjoy your day. Please be safe. Please make good choices, and please care for yourself. I love you all. Bye-bye.